Tell me a fact and I'll learn. Tell me a truth and I'll believe. But tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever. The Names Not Numbers Oral History Film Documentary Project is remembering the stories of the Holocaust and is telling the story of the Holocaust for the world to hear, for the world to learn, and to inspire future generations to combat anti-Semitism and all forms of hatred and intolerance. This unique project is in its 16th year. Over 2,500 survivors and 6,000 students have participated in it worldwide. The students were instructed by teachers and professionals. They learned interviewing techniques from journalists. They learned filming techniques and editing skills from documentary filmmakers. The students interviewed, filmed, and edited the 2-hour interviews with each survivor to make 20-minute oral histories that are compiled in the Names Not Numbers documentary at the school. You're about to view the documentary Names Not Numbers, a movie in the making. This film chronicles the students as they are being trained by the professionals and includes their reflections. In it is embedded approximately 10 minutes from each interview. This is the students' work, their filmed and edited interviews. Through this project, our students are preserving history, and they are the witnesses to the witnesses.
I knew things were bad in Poland. I had heard some of the postcards. All I can say, I had to accept it.
The Nazis kept accurate records, and they were very cultured, very intelligent. It's really hard to believe that could have committed so many atrocities.
Jews had gone through a lot, and we always carry our history with us. But somehow or other, we survive. But the magnitude of what was coming, nobody could imagine.
All the Jews have to report with the bridge, 1 hour. If not, they're going to be niedergeschossen, shot.
All I kept saying is, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. I had good reasons to be afraid.
So my father and mother stood in front of me, and they said, we don't know what's going to be. I cried bitter tears.
My family died because they were Jewish. For no other reason. They weren't bad. They didn't steal. They didn't kill. They were good people. And the 6 million that were murdered were also good people.
Good morning, everyone. It is so good to be here, and it's such an honor to have the Names Not Numbers program here with us in the school. The word Holocaust is a very interesting word. In fact, the word Holocaust actually comes from a Greek word, holokausten, which is a translation of the Hebrew word olah, the korban olah. The korban olah given the times of the temple was the burnt offering which was completely consumed. Some people use the word shoah or churban, which means a destruction, but not a complete destruction. It's never a complete destruction with the Jewish people. We're always going to be here. What keeps us all connected, what keeps our relationship strong, is memory. Without memory, we're starting all over again every single day. And we're keeping memory alive. We're keeping it alive within us and within the Jewish people. You know, when I was a child living in California, I was in a minyan that I was the only one under the age of 55. The entire minyan, on top of a storefront, was just Holocaust survivors. people that barely spoke English. And I actually fully didn't appreciate that when I was growing up, ages 7 to 11. But I was the child, I was the next generation. So for me, that's my memory. My family has been in America for over 5 generations. There's no survivors from the Holocaust in my family. But I'm no less part of the Jewish people, and I'm no less responsible to perpetuate that memory and their lives and the Kedusha and the holiness that they brought into the world, and that we are continuing.
The title of this project is Names, Not Numbers.
A project like this really humanizes the number 6 million. We hear about what's happening in Israel right now, and there's been 1,000 people murdered. Even that is it's impossible to imagine 1,000 people. What does 1,000 people in one room look like? Number 6 million is infinitely larger. It humanizes the number 6 million when you just have the opportunity to talk to one.
Each person has a name and isn't a number. We want to make sure that they're recognized and not just forgotten by history.
We watched a film about Dr. Avi Tallin's experiences in the Holocaust.
They told us to line up for the roll call. I was in one row, and my brother was like 2 or 3 rows away. Then came a SS officer, and he started to count. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, above face. And they took me with this group to the train station, and that's the last time I saw my brother.
I thought it was really powerful. It was obviously very emotional for him. At the end, he was sort of crying and obviously needed a second. And I just feel like it's a very emotional and powerful thing to be able to talk about something so traumatic.
We were told it was a 20-minute video, but there was probably 2 hours of actual footage and conversation that they took, and they put it down into a 20-minute clip. So I got to actually see what that looks like.
And we kind of got a picture of what the end product of the program will look like.
I feel more prepared, because now I have an idea of what I'm actually doing, what I'm trying to create.
I am excited and really honored to be asked to participate in this. This is an amazing project and a very important project.
We had Ellen Futterman and Shula Newman come and speak to us today about their experiences in journalism and giving us tips and advice for what we're going to be doing in journalism too.
Part of what we do as journalists is we ask people to open up to strangers, right? And to tell their stories to strangers. And that's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing for the subject to do, and it's not an easy thing for the journalists to do well. My goal is to start to give you guys some ideas about how you elicit the trust from the person that you're going to be interviewing, and how to make sure that you get the fullest possible story from them that you can.
Best thing you can do, I think, as an interviewer, is to listen. I know that you've been told, and I think it's a really good idea to have your questions ready when you do your interview, so you have them. But what you don't want to do is kind of go through the list of, okay, ask this question, check it off, ask this question, check it off. You really want to have a conversation with whomever it is that you're interviewing.
A good journalist has the list of questions, but is listening really carefully and is looking for the opportunities to say, wait, tell me more about that.
Don't ask yes or no questions.
The kind of questions that you shouldn't ask is like yes or no questions, because that doesn't really get you anywhere.
You never want to ask questions where the answer could always be yes or no. You're always looking to have a conversation.
If I asked you, for example, now I know your name is Daniel, did you eat breakfast today? Kind of. Okay, that tells me absolutely nothing, you know? But if I say, what did you eat for breakfast today?
I had a protein shake.
Yeah, good. That was a much more interesting answer than just kind of.
They taught us about eye contact. Eye contact is important to connect with the person you're interviewing, and so that they feel like they're being listened to and appreciated.
Maintain eye contact as much as possible. You do want to, encourage them with gestures, but not with words, because this is video. You're not part of the story, this is their story, so maintain silence as much as you can.
Sometimes it's okay to go down a rabbit hole, Because just because you have a script that you have prepared doesn't mean you have to stick to it in its entirety.
Ask for details. You know, if someone tells you something's cold, that's great, but how cold was it? Like, what did that cold feel like for you? Now, granted, they probably were just a young person, but those kinds of memories stay with you. And so the more you can draw that out of your folks, the better, because again, you're gonna have a richer story.
We also learned a little bit about filmmaking.
There are 3 shot sizes that we typically talk about in filming.
We learned about the wide shot,
which is you're trying to get as much in as possible.
And we learned about the medium shot.
It's almost all above the waist or like above the knees, like a certain point. And then there's the close-up, which is basically just head and shoulders.
So that's our wide, medium, close-up. Now, where do we put them in the shot? Let's go over here. Center, huh?
Shouldn't put the subject in the middle of the screen. You want them to be on like 1/3 of the screen.
So the rule of thirds is basically the camera is split into 3 parts, horizontally and vertically.
Actually, the rule says that the eyes should be 1/3 from the top, 1/3 from the side, right?
In the workshop, we each person chose one of the little positions, either being on the camera, controlling the camera, listening to the audio, or asking the interview questions. And then every couple minutes, we would switch around, we would rotate, and each person would get to use the camera. We'd have to focus it ourselves, we'd have to zoom it ourselves, get a couple of the different shot sizes.
I just want to also remind you guys that not a lot of the shots is going to get into the film, right? Because we mainly it's the survivor, right? So please don't be afraid to. I want you guys to make mistakes, okay? I don't want you to think you can't make mistakes, okay? Because there's editing.
We really got told everything that we needed to know in order to successfully interview our survivor.
My great-grandfather and my great-great-uncle, they were put in prison during Kristallnacht.
Well, I had a lot of family that was killed in the Holocaust.
Yeah, I have my great-grandparents on my mom's side.
My great-grandparents were both survivors from Auschwitz.
I guess just like as a descendant of Holocaust survivors, just I feel like I have some obligation after they survived all of that. They came to America, they had kids that had me. Like I have some obligation to them to kind of tell their story, even though.
I think it's really interesting to hear from Holocaust survivors themselves. It puts everything into perspective, and there aren't that many today. So having the privilege of speaking to one is just so amazing.
I'm feeling a little bit nervous.
A little nervous, but also excited to learn about her story.
A bit nervous. I mean, it's not every day you get to meet a Holocaust survivor and talk to them about their life.
Feeling good. I'm feeling a little curious. Kind of want to know about her story, what it's like. I'm kind of curious to see what she's like.
A little nervous, a little excited. This is a completely new experience for me, so it's something I'm looking forward to.
I've never spoken to a Holocaust survivor before. I think this is a good opportunity.
Pretty good. I feel like we've prepared enough. Well, they gave us these sheets with information about her.
We got a bio, and it kind of gave a small synopsis of who the survivor was, where they were born, kind of the timeline of until now of what went on in their life.
I looked up the Holocaust in France. I looked up the woman herself who I was interviewing.
We prepared by creating a list of questions.
We were told that we had to write, I think, 50 questions.
I'm going to interview Elsa.
We're going to interview Rachel Goldman Miller.
I'm going to interview Eva Ozorowski.
I'm going to interview Eva Ozorowski.
I'm going to interview a lady named Eva Ozorowski.
I'm going to be interviewing Rachel Goldman Miller.
you know, I don't really know how to feel. Like it's amazing to be able to meet with someone who's been through something so crazy.
I want to make sure like the story gets told the best way it can.
My name is Elsa Drapach.
My name is Rachel Goldman Miller.
My name is Eva, Eva, or Chava, depending on where I happen to be.
And where were you born?
Yaroslav, Poland, in 1928. My hometown life, I could say, very happy. Not rich, but very happy. My mother, my father, Marcus, Jewish name Mordechai. He was not like a Hasidic, but when Friday came, like we would be rabbis, a long table, a white thing, and with every child, Borich atu Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamoitze lechem men churetz. Give a piece of chali, dip in honey, and every child have to say this. That's why I know this. Every Friday. And my sister was, I think, 2 years or 3 years older than me. Her name was Faiga, Jewish name. Polish name, Wanda. And my two brothers, Abraham, he was a year younger than me, and Yitzchok, he was the youngest, Ishu. This is my mother, you see? She was always happy, always smiling. And this is my brother, Yitzchok. We went to school, to the Polish school, and in the summer, the Zionists organize a camp. And over there, they teach everything about the Palestine Zionists. The song was about Zionists, everything, in Polish. My Żydówki patriotki. We Jewish women patriots. Ręce mamy jak te kotki, a your fingers are like stick. Wrogom oczy wydłubiemy. The enemy we would pull out the eyes. Palestynę odbierzemy. We would take back Palestine. And we would sing on the Moses mountain, let live Palestine. And we sing the Atikva. And did our exercises, then we went to a good breakfast.
I was born May 20th, 1933, Paris, France. I was the youngest of 4 children. My parents had arrived from Warsaw, Poland. My father was a barber. My mother was a housewife in Warsaw and a housewife in France. Sometimes we went to shul, but it was not on a regular basis. We're not religious, but we were very Jewish.
I was born in Warsaw, Poland, in December 12th, 1930. My father had come from a small shtetl, but he moved to Warsaw, and he went to an art school, and that's where he learned watchmaking. My mother and her family had been in Warsaw for some generations. My father left Poland when I was 3 months old, wound up in Lisbon, Portugal, trying to emigrate to Brazil. He was a watchmaker. He had his tools, so he opened up what I call a little hole in the wall and started fixing watches. And it took him 3 years before he was able to save up enough money to send for my mother and me. I left Warsaw when I was 3 years old. My memories start when I was about shortly after my 3rd birthday, in January 1934 or so. I remember being in a train. all of a sudden it's dark and it's smelly. And then it gets light and we're out, and all of a sudden a man is holding me. That was my father. We were all three in one room. I remember my mother and father putting together 2 chairs and my mother putting on all the bedclothes she had. That's where I slept on when we first came.
One of the reasons that my family left Poland, because there was a lot of anti-Semitism, and they wanted my father to serve in the Polish army.
The schools were very anti-Semitic in school. They put lice on the back, the Jew, and they went to the teacher and said that a lice goes over there. So the schools were very nasty, very anti-Semitic. Or they put a pin in the packet when the teachers were very elegant ladies, Polish, Christian, and they have a pin, so they would take the pin and put in my jacket, and the teacher called me and she said, bring your jacket. I brought, I put it on, put your hand in what you have and take it out. I put my hand out and there was something I put on the table, a pin. She sent me home out of the school. The boys went to a different school, only with boys. They beat them up. Very anti-Semitic.
When the war started in 1939, I was going on 9 in our girls' school. We were giving out little pins with a Portuguese emblem, with a little number. I became a member of the Portuguese youth, which was modeled after the Hitler Jugend. And guess what their salute was?
As a kid who doesn't like a parade, I was no different. I ran downstairs because we lived on the first floor, and I wiggled myself in front of everybody. And when I saw their uniform, gray-green uniform, it was so frightening. I remember crying and running back upstairs, and I remember my parents asked me, "Why are you crying? Did somebody hurt you?" All I kept saying is, "I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid." I had good reasons to be afraid, because that was the beginning of doom and a nightmare. I was 7.
One day my father came home and make an announcement. All the Jews have to report with the bridge, 1 hour. If not, they're going to be niedergeschossen, shot. My mother said she's not going. It was November, rainy, but she went out and I ran after her. I am already 10 years old. We marched, we went with the bridge, and the Nazis out. They throw us out. We end up on the Russia side. We've been in the woods, but we walk all day, and when we walk, we got wet. What was November, we find out on the other side with Russia. It was dark. My mother knocked on a door to a villager, a Polak, a Christian man, and she told him that we didn't eat. We walk all day. He let us in, but one thing she have to promise. He's afraid for the neighbors that she let in Jews. If she promised that she would go before it's getting light, and she promised. and she hold the promise. We went out in the morning. The Russia soldiers put us on a truck, gave everybody a big glass of hot milk and a piece of bread, and took us to Lemberg.
For the first year, it was no different. My father went to work, so did my mother did her usual thing. But a year later, August 20th, 1941, there was a lot of commotion in our yard. One of my father's neighbors came knocking at our door and said, "Monsieur Goldman, please come with me. They're picking up the Jews and taking them to a labor camp." My father did not question it. He took a suitcase, put clothes in it, and started to walk over to Monsieur Martin. Monsieur Maurice in building number C told the French people that he was trying to get away. So they picked him up right there. They came looking for my two brothers, who were now 18 and 16. My mother hid my two brothers under the bed with an enamel bathtub. I'm sure the inspector that came up must have seen them, but decided not to see them. On that day, my father was taken away, his brother Leon was taken away, and my aunt to Auschwitz. I was scared. I was lonesome for my father. I couldn't eat on his lap anymore. And my mother was upset. My brothers, we were all upset. And there was no more get-together on Saturday night. They became very sick, and my mother and my aunt got them out of the camp. They died December 30th, 1941.
One night in Lemberg, they came and they throw us on a truck and they ship us to Russia. That's why we survived. This was a miracle, because 6 months later or 9, the Nazis came. They killed all the Jews, not even one survived. But when they took us, it was a tragedy. Babies didn't survive, a lot of old people. It was horrible.
The uncle who used to write to my father used to always say at the end of and your sister Golda sends her regards. After some of these postcards, it was her husband sent her regards. And then one of the later ones said, your sister Golda has gone to visit your father. I had lost my grandfather. So that told us something had happened to his sister.
My house was really very sad after our father died. And my mother said to me, Rachel, we're going to send you to the country. My best friend Cecile, who was not Jewish, was going to go with me. But most importantly, my sister, who I absolutely adored, was my idol. And she was supposed to come with me. Her birthday was July 15th. School had ended, and I was supposed to leave on the 13th. So Sabine, that was her name, did not want to leave on the 13th because my aunt promised her a handbag. So she decided that she would come on the 18th of July. On the 13th, my friend Cecile and myself left for this farm in Mangeron. When we got there, it was exactly what I wanted it to be. Kids were playing and singing and blah, blah, blah. other kids came up and they started talking about this big raid that they're going to have in Paris. I started to walk, and I went to my bedroom and I cried. On the 18th, I went to the bus to pick up Sabine. When I went to pick her up, Cecile's mother got off the bus. And I said, "Where is Sabine?" She said, "Oh, she went shopping." I said, "In our family, when we make a promise, we keep it." She says, "Oh, you're being difficult." So we start to walk towards the farm. And I said, "If you don't tell me what happened to my family, I'm going to run away to Paris." She told me that on July the 16th, they picked up my mother, my two brothers, and my sister. I was very, very angry at my mother. Why didn't she keep me with her? My mother saved my life. If she had kept me with her, I wouldn't be sitting here with you, telling you my story. Before I left, my mother said to me, "Rachel, I'm going to give you a new name, and you're not allowed to tell anyone that you're Jewish. The only one that'll know that you're Jewish is the farmer and your friend Cecile, because she wasn't Jewish. If I'd ever lie, I would have been punished. My mother's asking me to lie, and I'm accepting it without questioning it. My name was Christine."
At that time, there were 3 organizations in Europe trying to save people in general, not just Jews. The organizations were the American Red Cross, the Unitarian Church Service, and the Quakers, otherwise known as the Society of Friends. The money was given to the Quakers to get to Europe and try to get kids out. So the boat came to France, and they were not allowed to land, period. So the boat turned around, went down the Atlantic coast to the first open port, which was Lisbon. And they went to the little Jewish community. My father was called to a meeting. They explained what they're doing. "Give us your kids. We'll take them to America." I cried bitter tears. This went on for a little while, and I still, cried and cried. So my father and mother stood in front of me, and they said, "We don't know what's going to be. One of us must live, and you're it." So the boat ride on the Serpa Pinto took 3 weeks instead of the usual 1 week. I got seasick. I was the first one. After 3 days, one of my, I knew, there were 2 people that I knew of in the boat. No, 3 people I knew of. One was a girl older than me, a couple of years older, who went to the same lycée that I went. The other 2 were, I knew of them. They were good friends. The parents were good friends of my father and mother. It was Raquel, who was a year older than me, and her older brother, Wolf, who became Zev in America later. He came to the bedroom and ordered me out of bed. "Get dressed, you're going up." I don't feel. "Get dressed." And then he led me up on top. And as soon as I got on top, I ran to the edge, and after that, I was fine.
What was going to happen to me? I have no money. I have nothing. Who's going to take care of me? I cried for 3 solid weeks. I got a call from my aunt, my father's sister, who told me she was in hiding. And she said that as soon as it would be safe, she would take me back to Paris. So anyway, I waited. Now Nida came out. Anyone hiding a Jewish child, if you'll bring him in, you'll pay them 300 francs. This farmer, whose name I do not know, wrote a letter to my aunt asking permission as to whether or not she should report me to the police. And my aunt sent her the 300 francs. So as a result, I was saved twice by this farmer by my mother.
Mariska Respublika, this is between, if you know the map, between Ural and Siberia. Russia, they took the men to the army, so we become like Russia people. My father was in the army, so we got the freedoms that Russia citizen. We could live close to a school, and children could go to school. The school was very good. They didn't talk about the war, no hatred, nobody beat us up, but people were like prisoners. There was no doctor, nothing. We ate everything. My mother used to be a very good cook. When she cooked, there was a neighbor, a Christian lady, Nadia was her name. Her husband was in the army. She always shared with her and gave her. My mother was very religious. All the time, she never ate meat. Never. Potatoes, carrot. But my father would eat if you gave him. But she never. She was a strong character. But she cooked pig's meat for the children. She used to say, the children have to grow, they must eat.
We made it to America. We went to Philadelphia because Long Island Sound, they had seen U-boats. From Philadelphia, so they took us to New York. After a couple of weeks, they started sending us out different places. 3 of us were sent to St. Louis.
What was Jewish life like in St. Louis back then?
Well, there was a very good community around Blackstone and Easton. Blackstone had several shuls, including Nusachari. I remember that one. Beth HaMedrash HaGadol turned out to be on Bartmer, where I was sent for integration when I was teaching public schools. And out of my window, my kindergarten class, I could see the old Beth HaMedrash HaGadol shul, the backyard, which had moved by then already to University City. My foster mother's mother lived on Blackstone, and she went to one of the shuls there, and we used to visit her often. And the interesting thing in my day, during the high holidays, my girlfriends and I, of course we were all dressed up, we'd go shul hopping. We went to each shul where one of the parents were, and we went up to say hello and wish them a Git Yontef. There may have been one restaurant, the Jewish old folks home they used to call it. You could come on Sundays and they cooked more and you would eat buffet style.
What about butchers and all those?
It was loaded. Every other block had butchers. We had one butcher a couple of doors away, a block away another one, across the street another one, and Rothman's Delicatessen not far from Blackstone. It was everything in that Jewish community.
My aunt was getting very nervous because older Jewish people were taken away. European Jews were taken away. Pétain made a deal with the French police that they could take older European Jews, but they were to leave the French Jews alone, which is what my uncle was, which he was actually murdered by mistake. So when I was with my aunt, I would wear the star. When I was in hiding, I was Christine. In other words, when I wore this, the star that says Jew, which was on the left side, on the outside of your clothes, I was Rachel. When I did not wear it, and I was in hiding, I was Christine. I never made a mistake.
This bulletin has come to you from the NBC newsroom in New York. The German news agency Transocean said today in a broadcast that the Allied invasion had begun.
Early Tuesday morning, numerous landing craft and light warships were observed in the area between the mouth of the Somme and the eastern coast of Normandy. At the same time, paratroops were dropped from numerous aircraft on the northern tip of the Normandy Peninsula.
This means invasion.
V-Day. I remember that. Victory in Europe. My foster father got us into his car, took us downtown, and we were downtown just celebrating. It was noisy. It was wonderful. I knew that my father and mother went to Philadelphia. One day, I was babysitting for my foster mother's brother and his wife with their little boy. And the phone rings, and it's my foster mother saying, "Chava, come back right now, your parents are here." So I took little Joel and off we went. It was only a few blocks away. And there were my parents sitting on the sofa. Someone grabbed Joel out of the way. I sat down between them. We just held hands. We cried. And then we hugged and kissed, but we just sat there holding hands and cried.
When the war ended, I was in an orphanage with my cousin. We were all children whose parents had been taken away. 3 parents came back, not 3 sets. 3 parents came back out of the 60, which actually was a very good percentage by comparison. We had put on a play, Sholem Aleichem, the Tabak Pushka. A Jewish soldier came walking by. He bought 300 soldiers from the base, Jewish and non-Jewish, and they bought all kinds of goodies, ice cream, chocolate, which we hadn't seen. Some kids didn't even know that chocolate existed because they had never tasted it. There were 3 soldiers that wanted to bring me to the United States, and Harry was one of them. I left France on December 3rd, went to Cherbourg, From Sherbrooke, we went to Liverpool. I was steerage, and I was sick from the day we left Liverpool till we arrived at Ellis Island. I was as green as a green apple. Harry molested me. He started when I was 11 and a half years old. His wife threw me out. I was in 5 different foster homes until I got married. I was very fortunate to find an extremely wonderful Jewish family. I adored my mother-in-law. I sat shiva for her. I asked the rabbi if I could sit shiva for her. She became my mother.
After the war, Stalin get an order that we can go back to our homes. But there was no homes anymore. Everything was kaput. People after the war, there was a scare to be in Poland because they were anti-Semitic. The Zionists took care of us. They took us to Austria. And we stayed in Austria a year, and later they took us to Germany. And they called the DP camps.
There are some who have a very difficult time struggling with how HaKadosh Baruch Hu could let this happen. Obviously, there are a lot of goals to this program. I think one of the goals, which we don't want to lose sight of in a program like this, is building emunah.
Today we had a session on emunah with Rabbi Yari.
I want to tell you a little bit about the power of a mitzvah that happened during that time, and in general, when a person is moiseh nefesh, puts in superhuman effort to keep a mitzvah, what could happen from that, and how strong their emunah was during the war. There's a sefer called Responsa from the Holocaust. Have you seen that? Responsa from the Holocaust are shaylas, halacha questions that came to Rabbanim during the Holocaust. I'll give you an example. Are you ready for this? Somebody snuck in a pair of tefillin. There were a number of pair of tefillin that were snuck into the camps. They had to get up early in the morning for roll call. We put on tefillin during the day, not at night. So during that tiny in-between time, there were secret lines of people waiting to put on a pair of tefillin, just for a second, to put on a pair of tefillin. Maybe to say Shema, or without the tefillin, say Shema, just put on the tefillin. And there were lines, and it would take like 2-week cycles till you get your chance again, or 3-week cycles. And the shayla was asked, would it be permitted to put on tefillin at night so the cycle can go faster? We can put on tefillin once a week instead of once in 2 weeks. Is it better to put on both the yad and the rosh, and we would wait longer, or is it better one puts on the yad and one puts on the rosh? Can you imagine? That's what they were thinking? The Bluzer Rebbe on Hanukkah was in the concentration camp. He wanted to light the menorah, and he snuck a half a potato and a little bit of oil from a machine. It was coming close to Hanukkah, and they decided they're going to have a secret minyan for the Bluzer Rebbe from Ma'ariv before Hanukkah. But many people wanted to be part of that minyan and daven. And through the back and through the front and through the holes, the room was full. The Bluzer Rebbe lit the candle. He said the bracha asher kedeshanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Chanukah. Sha'asa nisim la'avaisenu b'amim hahem b'zman hazeh. She'hechiyanu v'kiyamanu v'kiyanu, that we lived and we reached to this time. And he lit the menorah. And when he finished, a yid called out and said, Bluzer Rebbe, he said, that you said the bracha asher kedeshanu, I understand. that Hashem made miracles for us at the time of Hanukkah, I understand. Shehechayanu v'kimanu, the great simcha that we lived and reached this day, where any minute an officer can come in and shoot us or take us like gas chambers, to make a bracha of the joy of living to this day. And the Blushov Rebbe, under that servitude, said, I had the same question, but I looked around the room, and when I saw so many Yidden that were willing to be Meiser Nefesh, to be by the Chanukah licht, I said, Shechayanu v'kiyimanu v'kiyanu, that I reached that day, be part of this nation that is so happy to do a mitzvah.
I believe in God. I'm a strong believer of God. I speak to God. I get angry at God. I get angry because some of the things, like what happened to Israel, and how could it happen again? But it's my God. And I will continue to love. I love God, even though I get angry at Him. The most important thing is each individual, you have to respect yourself. That's the most important thing. And you have to believe in yourself. If you can do that, you can respect somebody else and go on.
Just be honest the way you are. To be nice people, to treat people nice.
Be kind to each other. Help make a better world for all. We're all part of it.
And 3, 2, 1, cheese.
Kindness is one of the first things that you can do.
The Holocaust didn't happen all at once.
The Holocaust is like the culmination of decades of events. So
we have to be mindful and like be aware that and take the necessary precautions that should never happen again.
And we want to make sure that the people whose lives were lost weren't lost for nothing, so we can learn from them.
Now more than ever, it's really important that we really know our history and who we are. There's a lot of things happening in the world, and it's really important that we know how to hold on to our identity and to our history and sort of carry that with us.
I'm probably like the last generation that'll be hearing from survivors themselves.
We're the last really generation that's going to have this kind of opportunity.
We cannot let people who suffered so terribly just be forgotten. We need to remind ourselves that this happened. We can't let it happen again.
Never forget.
Don't be a bystander. If you think something is wrong, you fight for it. Being a bystander will not do anything.
So there's the bully and there's the victim, but there's also the bystander who they say is like just as guilty as the bully for seeing it and not saying anything, not stopping it.
Silence is the most destructive thing there is.
We should speak up for people in need.
I think it's really important to realize that we need to stay together as one people.
No matter how hard the times that the Jews are going through may seem, we will always come out of it, and we will always come out of it strong.
בכותל כתוב, עם ישראל חי, עוד אבינו חי. על כל אבן מהכותל כתוב בדם ובדמעות, עם ישראל עם ישראל, עם ישראל, עם ישראל.